Let's say we have a program where we ask the user, do they want to continue? And they're supposed to enter yes or no. We then store that in a variable called choice, and then we check if it's yes. If it's yes, we're going to print out user entered yes. And if they entered no, then we're going to print out the user entered no. So we go to run our program, they type Y instead of yes, and nothing happens. Or maybe they type yes. I don't know why they're yelling, but they decided to yell. So how do you get it so that you can validate more than one thing at once and force them to enter the value? Hello, I'm James Humphrey, and on this channel, we work through problems, teach core concepts, and talk about the soft skills needed to get a successful career in tech. In today's problem, we're going to be showing you the techniques that you could use to have a menu and then force a user to enter a choice from the menu. You need to be conscious that whenever you're prompting users for values, they always could do something that you're not intending. So you need to account for that in all of your programs. Now in Python, if you want to do multiple compares in the same line, then you would use the OR keyword. Now, other programming languages do this with double bar, but that is not how it works in Python. We use OR. So now let's add in a choice, and I'm going to hit tab because it's going to autofill that for me. Double equal, and we're going to go Y. And let's do OR choice double equal yes. And now you're seeing we're going to have to do OR with a capital Y, and more and more and more of these as we add. Let's go ahead and run this really quickly so that you could see that if we now do YES, it's going to recognize that as a yes. So how do we do multiple choices without having to go double equal yes or? And what we could do is declare another variable. We're going to call this yeses. Definitely a real thing and not made up at all. And this is called a list. And what we could do is put in different variations. So we're going to put in yes, and let's go ahead and put in Y. And now what we could do is change this to choice in yeses. And what that is essentially going to do is do choice double equal yes or choice double equal Y. And as long as there's one match in here, it's going to return true. So now let's go ahead and run our program again. We're going to type in Y. It's going to say we entered a yes. And now we're going to type in yes. And it's going to say we entered a yes. Now let's enter YES, yes. And it didn't find it. So without doing this, which would be valid, we can do that. And we could do Y like this, but it gets really tedious. Because even if we do this, let's just go ahead and do it. Okay, and I need to click down here to type. Yep, forgot that. It's going to recognize that as a yes, but of course you have that sneaky user. Okay, they're going to type capital Y, lowercase yes, and now it doesn't work. So what can you do in this case? Let's get rid of this. And what we can do is use a function called lower. So strings have certain functions in it. We have this input. It's going to return an object str, which you could see by that little arrow, and then the str, which is a string. And what we could do is go dot and lower. And what this is going to do then is convert whatever they enter into a lowercase. So now if we run this and we enter in, let's say Y capital ES, it first converts this to lowercase, and then it tries to match it with our list. So they entered yes. So entering this list and then converting to lower is going to give us all those different variations without us actually having to type them all out. And so now let's do the same thing for nose, not to be confused with nose. And let's do NO and N. I can actually type. And now let's change this to choice in nose. So now we're going to enter in no, and now let's enter in capital NO. Is it no? And there we go. We entered a no. And then in case that they didn't enter any of these, let's add else condition. So first it'll check this, and it'll print if that's true. Otherwise it goes into here, checks this, print that, and then any other condition here, it's going to print out choice, or let's say not a valid choice. So let's go ahead and run this. Do you want to continue? And we're going to enter bar. because we can't read, so we just do whatever we want, apparently. Not a valid choice. So now let's change this so that they have to enter one of our choices. Otherwise, we're going to just keep asking them over and over. And to do this, we're going to use something called a loop. So first we're going to start with something called while loop, which it basically looks like this, where the second thing where I have true right here is the condition that needs to be met for it to continue. And this would be an infinite loop, meaning there's no way to break out of this. So if we just ran this program, it would run over and over and over, regardless of what happened. So what we actually want to do is give it a way to exit. And we can do that with the break keyword. So what we're going to do is put in break here. So what's going to happen is if they entered any of the variations of the yeses, the user entered a yes, and then it will break out of the loop. Then we're going to put a break here as well. That way, if they enter a no, it'll break. Otherwise, it's going to say not a valid choice, and then it will come all the way back up to the top and prompt them again. So let's go ahead and run this now. So we're going to enter car, and it's going to say not a valid choice. Do you want to continue, yes or no? And we're going to say pay, and now let's say no, and now it's going to say the user entered no, and then it exits the loop and stops prompting them over and over and over. So now let's do something differently. Instead of having this whole group where we're going to print out the user entered yes, the user entered no, let's change this to work without having two lists. So we're going to change this to instead be choices, and we're going to say this is equal to yes. And then we're going to copy and paste this. And so now we have choices that are yes and no. We also could do this a different way, which we could do this by doing choices is equal to yeses plus nos, not no's. I did it. I typed the no's. But if we do this, it would come out the same as yes, y, no. It'll add these two lists together and put that in choices here. So now we're going to just change that into choices. Now here we're going to do choice in choices, and we no longer need this elif, and we still want to print out whatever they said. So to do this, we could use a special thing called an f string, and we could put in brackets what we want to swap. So we're going to put choice here, and let's go ahead and run this, and we're going to enter in car, not a valid choice, and now let's do yes. And it's going to say the user entered yes. Now you'll notice that this is lowercase. That is because we did the lower here, which isn't the original. So if we wanted actually the original without destroying this, what we could do is maybe do choice here, bring this to a different line and say choice lower is equal to choice.lower. And then we can say choice underscore lower in choices, but we could print out choice. And this will preserve our first value. Okay, let's actually click down here. And now if we do yes, then it's going to say the user entered yes, but it also was able to convert down into lowercase and figure that out. So as you can see, now we can combine a bunch of things for some sort of menu, like for a game or something like that, using logic like this, where we're putting them in an infinite loop to do this over and over. Now, what I would like you to do is pause the video, and I want you to try to modify this program such that you have three different choices. You have new game, continue, or quit. Pause the video and see if you could do that, and then I'll walk you through how I would do that. All right. So to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this top yeses and nos, and we're going to create a new list. And this is going to be new game, continue, quit. And now for this, we're going to say, instead of this whole thing, we're going to say choose an option. And then we're going to go ahead and give them these options so they know what valid options are. And we're going to say new game, comma, continue, comma, quit. And hopefully they can figure it out from there. And then what we're going to do is take their input choice still, convert it to lower, and then we're going to check that versus choices. And then we're going to just keep the thing where it's exactly what they edited and printed it out. So now let's go ahead and run this. Oops, I need one more close parentheses in there. Let's just go ahead and type quit though really quick and we'll fix that. A quit is not a valid. Let's try quit. And do you know what the problem is here? Let's see if you can figure it out. So let's go ahead and type in quit. And it's going to say not a valid choice. Uh-oh. Let's type in new game. Not a valid choice. So now we're stuck in an infinite loop. How the heck do we get out of this? Well, if you're in Visual Studio VS Code, we're going to hit Control plus C, and it will do a keyboard interrupt and get out of it. What did we do wrong here? Go ahead and pause and see if you can figure it out, and then I'll give you the solution. Okay, so what we did is our choices, because we're converting to lowercase, our choices needed to all be lowercase. So let's change all of this to lowercase. And let's go ahead and fix our problem there with the quit. And now let's run this again. And we're going to do new space game. And it still didn't like that. What about continue? So here, I made another mistake. And trust me, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. So if you're a person who doesn't like making mistakes and learning from your mistakes, coding's probably not for you. But this is why we test it not on a production system, on our own computers, so that we can make mistakes and then go. And it's very, very important that you're testing as you go the different options and not just some of it, because when you make modifications, you might make multiple mistakes in the process of fixing other mistakes. So now let's run this one more time. And we now, in fact, fixed new game. And let's run it one more time. We're going to put in quit and then some random stuff and then not a valid choice, and then it prompts again. So now we have a very basic menu that we could use for a game that we're making. If you made this far, please consider liking the video. If you found it helpful, please share it with other people. And if you'd like to see more videos like this where we're building a problem up, check out this playlist here. It's a bunch of the same type. Hope to see you around.